Hi everyone, Miss Johnston here with your Unit 4 vocabulary for English 3. A lot of your words this week kind of have to do with researching and supporting points and things like that, so that'll kind of help you out as you think about your research paper. Our first word is cadaverous, which is an adjective. The definition for cadaverous is looking very thin and pale, or resembling a corpse. Many cancer patients going through chemotherapy begin to have a cadaverous look after many treatments. Or another good example is some Hollywood stars strive to be so thin that they begin to look cadaverous. Number 2 is corpulent, which is an adjective. Corpulent and cadaverous are antonyms of each other. So corpulent means fat or stout, having a large and bulky body, and cadaverous, as we saw on the last slide, is very thin and bony. So they're antonyms of each other. Some cat owners let their pets become corpulent, but that is actually very unhealthy for the cat. Number 3 is disabuse, which is a verb. The definition for disabuse is to set right in ideas or thinking, to free from error or deception. So some example sentences are, some students think that English 3 in junior year is going to be easy, but those students are quickly disabused when they realize the writing portfolio is very rigorous. Or another example, when someone has really extreme and radical political beliefs, their ideas may be disabused when they try to implement them in reality. Number 4 is espouse, which is a verb. The definition for espouse is to take up and support a cause or belief. So some example sentences are, after Colin Kaepernick began to silently protest during the national anthem, other football players also took a knee to espouse the same beliefs as Kaepernick. Or another example, even though there have been many mass shootings in the past year, there are still strong supporters who espouse the right to bear arms. Number 5 is extenuating, which is an adjective. The definition for extenuating is serving to excuse or lessening the serious of, especially a crime, or to downplay something. Some example sentences are, even though Miss Johnston has a very strict no late work policy, she will be understanding when there are extenuating circumstances. Or another example, the court reduced the criminal's sentences because of extenuating circumstances. So normally, as you guys see, this word is often used in front of circumstances. You've probably heard it that way plenty of times before, so you can kind of just think of situations where that would apply. Number 6 is facetious, which is an adjective. The definition for facetious is not meant to be taken seriously or literally, amusing or humorous. So a lot of the times when people are being facetious, they're trying to say something that's funny, but they're not really being serious about it. So some example sentences are, when students ask Miss Johnston how many points something is worth, and she responds with the answer, 1 million, she's just being facetious. Or, another example, when people are having a serious conversation, it is unproductive and immature to act facetious. Number 7 is gist, which is a noun. This is another word you guys have probably heard a lot of times before too. You hear it when people just say like, oh, I get the gist of it. You probably hear it in phrases like that. The definition for gist is the essential part or the main point. So some example sentences are, when writing a research paper, you should include the gist of your topic in the introduction paragraph, then get more detailed in the body paragraphs. Or another one, a real life situation, because Josh told his story in such a confusing way, I couldn't get the gist of it. Number 8 is heresy, which is a noun. The definition for heresy is a belief or opinion that does not agree with an accepted belief, or the denial of a sacred idea of a particular religion. So you often hear this having to do with religion, or sometimes politics, in the ways that people want to respect beliefs of religions. You might think of ways in which people would want to respect beliefs of like the country or the flag and things like that. So when someone commits a heresy, it's going against those beliefs. So some example sentences are, when people speak against their religion, it's considered heresy. Or, some religions believe that getting divorced is heresy because the couple swore to commit to each other for the rest of their lives. Number 9 is immutable, which is an adjective. The definition for immutable is not subject to change. It is constant. So it's nice the way that this word is. You can look at the root of it. If something is immutable, it can't be mutated. It cannot change whatsoever. So some example sentences. Some people are so firm in their beliefs that no matter what facts are presented to them, their stance is immutable. Or another example, your birthday is something that is immutable because it will never change. Number 10 is impugn, which is a verb. The definition for impugn is to attack as false or wrong, to challenge or call into question. So a good example for this is, in this example sentence, when Melania Trump delivered a speech to the United Nations, many impugned her for plagiarizing portions of one of Michelle Obama's former speeches. Number 11 is incisive, which is an adjective. The definition for incisive is very clear and direct, able to explain difficult ideas clearly and confidently. So some good example sentences are, a good research paper has an incisive thesis statement that clearly states the writer's topic and opinion. Or another example sentence, students prefer when a teacher has incisive directions to a larger project. So the idea here with incisive is that things are very clear and direct. Number 12 is insinuate, which is a verb. The definition for insinuate is to say something, especially something bad or insulting, in an indirect way. So some example sentences for insinuate are, when Joe started to explain something to me really slowly, I knew he was insinuating that I didn't understand his point. Or, Janice insinuated that Kate was getting fat when she suggested that we start working out together. Number 13 is penury, which is a noun. The definition for penury is the state of being very poor or extreme poverty. So penury and poverty can sort of be exchanged for each other when you're writing a sentence about it. So a good example sentence is, living in such penury to the extent that you have no place to live is extremely harsh in the winter months. Number 14 is recapitulation, which is a noun. The definition for recapitulation is a summary of the central points. The easiest way to think about this particular word is that whenever you think of somebody who's asking for a recap, or if you're trying to recap something, that's where that word comes from. So when you're looking for a recap, you're actually looking for a recapitulation. That's just a little shortened form when we say recap. So some example sentences. When conferencing with Ms. Johnston about your research paper writing portfolio, she is going to want a recapitulation of the work you have completed so far. Or another example, if you need to remember last week's episode of This Is Us, then you are going to want to catch the recapitulation at the beginning of the new episode. Number 15 is reverberate, which is a verb. The definition for reverberate is to echo over and over again, or to ring with sound. So that's why with this picture here, you kind of see the sound waves going throughout the air into that person's ear. So when sound waves are kind of echoing off the walls or anything like that, when you think of an echo, the sound is reverberating. So some good example sentences are, when the metal ladder fell down after painting my ceiling, the sound of it hitting the hardwood floor reverberated throughout the whole house. Or, some people love to have a bump-in system in their car so that the bass sound reverberates throughout the vehicle. Number 16 is specious, which is an adjective. The definition for specious is deceptively appearing to be fair, just, or right. Appearing to be true, but actually false. So the idea here with specious is that something seems to be right, something seems to be fair, but when you really think about it, you know it's not actually fair. So when something seems fair but it's not, or seems true but it's false, you could describe it as specious. So for our example sentence here, the idea of things being separate and equal at the same time is a specious concept. Number 17 is supposition, which is a noun. The definition for supposition is an idea or theory that you believe is true even though you do not have proof. So this is something that we think about whenever we're writing research papers, because you definitely want proof and evidence when you're trying to support a point. But a supposition is going to be any idea, theory, or opinion that you think is true, but you don't actually have proof. So here are some example sentences. A research paper cannot be a supposition. It must be an argument that is supported by facts. Or another example sentence, Sherlock Holmes always begins his investigation on a hunch, but at first it is only a supposition. He must investigate and find facts in order to support what he believes is true. Number 18 is surmise. This can be a verb or a noun, depending on how you're using it in a sentence. So for the verb version here, let me give you guys the definition first. Almost forgot. So for the verb version of the noun, the definition is to form an opinion about something without definitely knowing the truth. And if you're using surmise as a noun, it is a thought or idea based on inadequate evidence. So for an example sentence, for the verb, Angie surmised that her boyfriend Nick was cheating on her because he wasn't seeing her as often as usual, but she wasn't sure until she saw him out to dinner with another woman. And then for the noun version, Nick told Angie that she shouldn't just create a surmise without enough information. He was only out to dinner with his cousin who was in town for the weekend. Number 19 is tenuous, which is an adjective. Something that is described as tenuous is uncertain, it is weak, or it is flimsy. So a good example sentence to continue our story, Angie told Nick, "Her being your cousin sounds awfully tenuous. I'm going to need to see pictures from when you two were kids in order for me to believe that line." Number 20, the last one on our list, is travesty, which is a noun. The definition for travesty is a crude, exaggerated, or ridiculous representation or imitation, a mockery. So Nick dramatically replied, "It is a shame that our relationship would become such a travesty over something so simple like dinner with my cousin." Alright guys, so that is the end of our Unit 4 vocabulary words. Good luck!